Big Red Machines. How long do you think it's gonna last? It's 18 songs and an hour and 4 minutes long. Sorry, 15 songs, hour and four
15
minutes long.
songs. Yeah, it's just an interesting indie project.
Indie experimental project.
Yeah,
But
because
also happens to have
it's
Taylor Swift featuring on a couple songs.
and Fleet Foxes and a bunch of other people. But the project is it's Justin Vernon of Bon Iver and Aaron Dustner from the head of the National. So two pretty prominent big indie artists coming together and be like, let's go make some music together and getting a bunch of other people to go on and make a solid indie folk album. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. There's a lot to be said. I mean, Justin Vernon's vocals can always get to me every once in a while, just like the sound of his. It's kind of like Neil Young, where the songwriting, the production is beautiful, but his voice is always an acquired taste for people. So sometimes on certain tracks, it's a little too much Justin Vernon. Other tracks, sounds great. That's just a personal thing. Nothing against you, Justin. You make gorgeous music. But it's like Billy Corgan with Smashing Pumpkins. Love the Smashing Pumpkins. Sometimes his voice can get annoying here or there, but you take it for what it is. That's probably my only complaint of the album is that, and it can feel a little long towards the end, but it is what it is. It's not like Kanye long where I'm just sitting there like I don't want to do this podcast ever again, Dan, or retire. But it's not that bad. It's not that long, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. And this album, at least preference wise for me, has a number of things going against it. A being folk, B being kind of slower, and C being 2021 and longer than an hour. But again, I listened to some pretty long things this week, and this did not feel like as long. It made a really good use of its time, and it's sort of, I'd say, especially with the drums, it does like a very like alternative electronic folk kind of deal thing that gives it like a soft undertone or a soft measure of things, while still giving you room to have interesting instrumentation. Really, the vocals are front and center, and they sing in a lot of this project. No pun intended. They are like really prominent in a lot of this project, especially when you have the really good singer songwriters that you have featured throughout it. Yes. But it's all layered with this like nice sort of dreamy light drum soundscape with each song that doesn't get like drowned out or anything. It doesn't become like a drone. It's just like, I think it's a really good sort of like soundscaping effect that gives the album like a sound.
Yes. Exactly. It gives you an atmosphere that it wants to set you in. It sets you up for that kind of area, transports you, and it sticks to that throughout the entire album. Excuse me. Starts off the first track, Latter Days, featuring Anais Mitchell, which I assume is how you pronounce their name.
I think it's Anais, but yeah.
Anais, okay. Really like that track a lot. I really like all of the female vocalists that are on this album. Like knocked out of the park. She's also on the track with Fleet Foxes of Phoenix, but more on that in a little bit. But I really like the contrast vocals of everybody on this record that is featured. Like everybody contributes, puts their little own flavor and touch to it. But again, it's all cohesive, which is very hard to do when you have way different walks of life on this record. Second track, Reese, is pretty good. It actually reminds me a little bit of like the way the piano and the drums are in the background reminds me of Cardigan from Taylor Swift on her album Folklore last year. Like it sounds kind of similar to that, but granted, Justin Vernon did write that track with Taylor, so I can kind of get a sense of that. After that, you have my favorite track on the album, naturally, which is Phoenix with Robin Pecknold of Fleet Foxes. And again, Anais Mitchell, fantastic track. I absolutely love this track. Listen to this a lot. I'm wanting to talk about it for a while on the podcast, but I'm not going to self-indulge too much. It's just really, really good indie. And Jack Antonoff, this is how you write a fucking indie song. So hop on it, my guy.
Yeah, I love the production flourishes. I love the brass section that you get kind of throughout it, just lightly layered through it. It's really good stuff.
Robin's voice I will never get tired of Robin Pecknold's voice for as long as I live. So that too.
Right after that is Birch, which is my personal favorite thing I've ever heard Taylor Swift do. Absolutely beautiful record.
I'm going to tell Bonnie about that because she's going to be happy. I really like Birch. I think it's just one of those works that is interesting because Justin Vernon's vocals on here, I think, are where he really stretches his range on there, but he actually does it and nails it out of the park. And then Taylor Swift in the background is fantastic.
Yeah, it's the perfect kind of, yeah, when they harmonize and do like a duet kind of deal, it sounds beautiful. When just Taylor's alone and she's doing her own thing very, very well. I really think she's in her element in this kind of music where she's bringing her like soft folk style into something that's a little more production wise, like of a different exercise than what she usually does. It really makes for great stuff, and Renegade afterwards is a really good song as well. I
Still
think it's
very good.
it's the more popular song from this like Big Mad Regime collab with Taylor Swift, but I definitely liked Birch more.
Yeah, I like Renegade for the lyricism in there, because some of Taylor's lyrics here or there can like be on the nose or something, or not very um convincing, but the lyrics in Renegade, it really feels genuine. It feels fantastic throughout it too. So those two tracks, interesting that Big Red Machine, they put the two Taylor's tracks right next to each other, but I think they did it perfectly because they complement each other well. Birch complements Phoenix right after each other, and then after Renegade, you have it goes to Cincinnati, and it still flows very well. It's not like you're missing anything or whatnot. You're just getting that little chunk right there, and then you're able to get the rest of the album too. So very well done on the way it's placed. But impressed with Taylor Swift on those features for sure. She's, there's going to be a long list of the Coldplay award that I want to give out to Audioface, or make it the inverse Coldplay, I think is what I'll call it.
The reverse Coldplay.
Yeah. There's a few artists that have done that, so I'm into, and she's one of them.
Yeah. So you can't get away from the fact that this album is a quieter one, a more mellow one for sure, but that is to say that it's still especially like as you get to the more mellow part, as the latter part of the album, it has a good like it still has a good sort of tempo. Like I said, those backing drums really help you keep like a little bit of a rhythm going, and in the part where it could otherwise potentially be a snore, you're able to kind of get through the songs, and it has like I said, like that production quality up to it, like really makes it interesting. Like I think you could talk better about more some of those songs though.
So you have a couple decent tracks towards the middle and the end of the album. You have Mimi featuring Elsie. I guess Audioface is not known for pronouncing names right, so we were always butcher everybody's name. I butchered my own name. At one point I called myself Dan on this podcast, so you never know.
We respectfully butcher people's names, respectfully.
Yes. You have Easy to Sabotage, Hutch, that are also quite good songs, and then towards the end, but the thing is, it does slow down a bit. Like Hutch, you have this really nice piano that's throughout the track and whatnot, but as Dan was saying earlier, it is a slower album, so if you don't like slow tracks, it never, like, especially towards the end, it gets pretty slow and chill towards it. So if you're not a fan of that style, you won't necessarily like it towards the end, but there's still a lot of good things in this record towards the end that I think is worth listening to. Like Magnolia, you have this like really nice drum beat within the piano going back, which I think Dan said again too towards the beginning of the album. You have the percussion is fantastic throughout this whole record. The drums really keep you intrigued onto what's going on, even though you have like slower stuff, guitars, pianos, all this other stuff, which by themselves aren't going to do enough of the trick for a record that's more than an hour long. But with the percussion, it wraps everything together and keeps you engaged throughout it. And Magnolia is a perfect example of that. It's the third to last song on the album, but it still keeps you engaged through it. Really like the piano on it too.
Yeah.
Last two songs, June's a River and Bricey. What you second say?
I was gonna say, yeah. Well, there's June's the River, Bricey, and then New Auburn at the very end. But
New Auburn, sorry, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Magnolia, June's a River is also really nice. I think like that's if you make it around to the end of that album, that's a really nice song there. And then New Auburn also ends really nicely. This is a good, like, it'll put you to sleep in a very nice way. Like it'll be like a calm, soothing kind of deal. But
you didn't wake the baby on the flight. Good job, pilot.
Yeah, it's a very musically, like, concentrate is not the wrong word, and like dense is not necessarily like the best term I'm using for here, but there's a lot in the album. There's a lot musically like that it offers, which is really cool. It's like an experimental indie folk thing with some really heavy
Hmm.
hitting guest features that are grateful enough. I mean, that are uh, nice enough to do multiple features on the song on the album, and they all turn out pretty stellar. So definitely check this out. This is one of those, on Audioface we usually do like a really big mainstream artist, another one that maybe you've heard of that's been around for a minute or so, someone kind of seasoned, and then we do something indie that you may not have heard of but might be kind of cool. This is a very classic Audioface episode in that regard, and this is definitely like something you would want to check out and that kind of off the beaten path sort of thing.
Yes. And yeah, I really enjoyed this record. Pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed it. You got a lot of, it's great. This summer, we have had a lot of fantastic music. We've also had a lot of shitty music. So it's been a good summer.
Yeah, it adds up. So arbitrary scale is because we do arbitrary scales every time on Audioface, because what we said in the review is what we said in the review. That's what actually matters. Rating systems don't. So the rating system this week is Biden falling asleep in front of world leaders. I'm going to give this the Catalonia. What if Biden just like
All right.
just chilling in Catalonia for whatever reason, and yeah, it's for whatever. Yeah, because I guess he just wants some tan because he's old, getting up there in age, wants some sun, and yeah, just messes up things with the people who are there. I don't know. He would just sleep, and people would laugh at him and call him Siesta Joe.
Siesta Joe. I'm gonna call him that from now on. That's fantastic. Now this is him falling asleep in front of the head of China. I cannot think of his name right now. I can see his face, but
Xi
this probably like
Jinping.
Xi Jinping. There we go. He yeah, Xi Jinping sitting next to him, and then it's just the whole world just explodes. It's just like everybody's like, oh my god, he fell asleep in the middle of it. What's going on? Like that. I want that to happen, just to see the internet's reaction. Arbitrary scales don't matter because what matters is what we said.